Some people cannot believe that a magician can fool them in such a way that they can't figure it out. But magicians can, and magicians do. Swindlers do, con men do, all the time. They're not magicians. They're fakes. They're lying to us. They're deceiving us. It's okay to fool people as long as you're doing that to teach them a lesson which will better their knowledge of how the real world works. No matter how smart or well-educated you are, you can be deceived.
How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Can I bring you something to...
Coffee? Oh, yes, please, for me, coffee.
Coffee in a minute, promise?
Okay. Oh, my heart just started again. That's good. It's always a good sign. See, I've always had my battle with the psychics, the so-called, and I use that word in quotations all the time, remember that. People who are stealing money from the public, cheating them and misinforming them. That's the kind of thing that I've been fighting all my life. Magicians are the most honest people in the world. They tell you they're going to fool you, and then they do it. Wait a minute, I have to worship there. Okay.
James Rand is the author of The Faith Healers, and he's best known as an investigator of psychic and miraculous claims. Would you welcome, please, the amazing Randi?
Here he is, the amazing Randi.
Would you tell us who you are?
The amazing Randi. Ta-da!
I was born at a very early age in a log cabin to help my father build. By the time I was 7, I was 11. I grew up very fast. I am a magician. I always have been a magician.
A conjurer, prestidigitator, legerdemainus, liar, cheat, charlatan, and fake.
You're a master magician. Some people have said that you're about the greatest escape artist since Houdini.
Randi has a real deep, natural affection for magic and this love of deception.
A good magician needs to be a little bit of a con man, I think. He needs to be sort of a criminal type, but not have enough guts to actually rob banks.
He loves magic. He's been his whole life as a performer, as a magician. So he really resents anyone applying the techniques of magic for any purpose other than entertainment, especially to convince people that there's something psychic going on here. He thinks that's an abomination.
Tonight on this stage, you are going to meet a man who claims he can move physical objects using only the powers of his mind. You have been touring our country debunking psychics, haven't you?
I have indeed. And I think that the solution is rather simple. Now, what I have here is particles of a white plastic, which will rather conclusively show that Mr. Heydrich is merely blowing on both the page and on the pencil.
James, ready?
Randi says the public is being fleeced via trickery. I am going to tell you what's happening, and more to the point, this is going to be a crusade to try and change the world.
If there is something to the paranormal, let's find out what it is, if anything. And on the other hand, let's not be taken in by the claptrap that is being offered us and at our expense.
I want now to introduce Uri Geller. He's been denounced by some people as a magician, and certainly he's a showman. He gives demonstrations all over the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Uri Geller.
He said his name is Uri Geller. The name didn't mean a thing to me. He's come to the attention of Stanford Research Institute, and the scientists there are apparently quite convinced that he has psychic powers.
What I do is telepathy, and that is, as everybody knows, is receiving thoughts and passing thoughts. And then I have the other power, which I read that they call psychokinesis, and that is moving or bending or breaking objects. It's cracking. I feel it under my fingers. See how gently it goes? Look, it's like it's becoming like plastic. And yeah, it's you can look. It's very.
In 1972, I got a call from Colonel Austin Kibler of the Defense Department, then acting head of ARPA, as it was called, Advanced Research Projects Agency. He says, could you drop everything you're doing and go to Stanford Research Institute? There's a psychic down here. And if he can do what they claim he can do, we ought to be involved. Because the Russians have a big program now going using what they call cyber warfare.
This film describes a 5-week investigation conducted at Stanford Research Institute with Uri Geller, a young Israeli. Here we present a case of a double-blind experiment in which someone places an object into a can chosen at random from 10 aluminum cans. Geller's task now is to determine which of these 10 cans holds the steel ball bearing.
Now, Targ had put off the two scientists who were in residence there at the time for quite a pair. First of all, Targ is legally blind, and he was one of the observers. Duh.
He has made his choice. The steel ball is found.
He fooled the pants off them. It was astonishing. They saw Nobel Prizes on the horizon, because if you discovered there really were psychic powers, that would certainly bring you a Nobel Prize or two.
In this case, Geller guessed that a 4 was showing, and he was quite pleased to have guessed correctly.
When I made my report to the government that Geller was a complete fraud, Targ and Puthoff realized they were not going to get the money from the government, so they took Geller on a tour to get publicity for him and to raise some private money to do the research with him.
I've been reading a lot of research on him from the Stanford Research Institute and from the science section of the New York Times. A lot of publicity on this gentleman whose name is Uri, U-R-I, Uri Geller. And we hope we're going to see some rather astounding things tonight. Would you welcome, please, Uri Geller.
Johnny Carson was the man. Everybody watched that program on NBC. And since I had been on the program many, many times, they asked if I could come into California to appear on the show that night. And I said, boy, this is rather short notice, but I will talk to your prop man. And I'll tell the prop man how he can prepare the props in such and such a way that if it's real, Geller can do it. But if it's a fake, Geller won't be able to do it.
Are you feeling in the mood yet?
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh.
More questions?
All right, let's...
What's the capital of South Dakota? No, I don't mean to press you.
Okay, let me see.
I said, okay. What I would like you to do with the little aluminum film cans is I would like you to coat them on the bottom with rubber cement. Don't glue them down to the tray. Just coat the bottoms and let them dry. But when they're put on the tray, they won't skid then. I said, because the way he does the film can thing is he rotates the tray and he sees which ones move differently.
We start eliminating the ones that do not have the water.
Without touching them.
He is really suspicious, you know. I'm having a hard time with you.
I don't mean to be, Uri. I really don't.
Just keep looking. Okay, let me rest a little, all right?
All right.
They actually shut down the set for 20 minutes or so while he hummed and hawed and wondered how he was going to do something. Then they came back to the live audience after a big, long commercial break.
Garth, we are back. Uri was telling me you don't feel, what, strong tonight?
I don't
Is that...
feel strong.
Geller had to give the whole thing up. It was a real failure for him, definite failure, because Carson's people had followed the instructions that I gave them.
Don't be disappointed. I'm not.
Okay.
We thought he didn't have a future, and we were very wrong, very, very wrong. We didn't know how wrong we were.
Let me once more. Let me hold it here gently.
As I'm not even touching it, and it's...
Look, it's you see, it's plastic.
When Geller was on The Tonight Show and Randi had helped Johnny set it up such that he would not be able to perform his tricks, it sure looked like that was the end of Geller's career. Over, done, 3 strikes and you're out, gone. No, 2 days later, he's on the Merv Griffin Show.
And all I'm saying is bend. 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 Okay, look. Can you see it? I mean, it's bent, you know.
That is
now,
a
what
very
happens,
dense key.
It's an energy that leaves my mind, nothing to do with my finger, penetrates the metal and alters the molecular structure. Now, instead of bend, I say to the broken watches, work. 1, 2, 3, work! Work! Just a second. It's working!
Oh my goodness,
See?
it's working.
I'm sorry it doesn't...
Your mother's watch is working. Is that like a miracle?
They all started. They're working. The I am not a crook watch.
First of all, I was born with this. When I was 4 years old, I was eating soup. And that's 4 years old. And suddenly the spoon started bending in my hands.
Now, Geller probably became the first superstar psychic to be apparently accepted by science and by scientists.
Uri has subjected himself, or has been subjected, to some scientific study, what they call cheat-proof, under rigid controlled conditions.
I want to tell you this, that this is not a trick. These are scientists who are putting their whole life at stake in validating these powers.
Randy was very upset by Geller's using trickery to deceive scientists. He thought that was very immoral. And he felt that this was a prostitution of his beloved magic.
Randy, you've been going around the country somewhat as Houdini used to in the past, trying to debunk those who say that it's psychic power. You say it's magic. This is my house key. Uri Geller took it, he went like this with it, with his finger, that's all, no pressure. And the key bent. You can see that. And I've carried it around because I found that I'm a believer now. Here is my identical key. Touch it and make it bend.
Would you hold the end of it very lightly in between your fingers, Barbara? And I'm just going to stroke it. Now, I'm not putting enough pressure on to bend it. No. Okay. Will you show it to the camera, please? Now, is it bent as much as this key or not? Are you going to keep this key too, Barbara?
In one way, I almost followed Geller around the country because if he appeared on some major show, I simply went on the show and did his same routine.
See? Now, when Mr. Geller does this, he says bend. I don't say that. I say broccoli, because it's a simple conjuring trick that used to be in the back of cornflake boxes when I was a kid.
Oh!
Heavens to Betsy, look at that. Would you say that key is bent?
I decided to write a book about him. I wrote a book, The Truth About Uri Geller, that hit the market when the interest in Geller was at its peak.
Kinetic energy melts the molecular structure.
It seems to be... Oh, my.
I want you to bend. You just say bend.
Randy and Geller just went back and forth like gladiators. It was fun to watch.
Can you do this spoon bending trick?
Does Dolly Parton sleep on her back?
And there's no heat at all. They wrote that I have laser beams in my buckle belt, and with that I bend keys. Yes.
Just look at this. You can actually see it bending over and turning liquid right in front of your eyes. And these things used to be on the back of cornflake boxes, Larry, but apparently some scientists either don't eat cornflakes or they don't read the back of the box.
This is my trademark, and you will not find it on any cereal box.
How did you do that?
Very well, I thought. It's sleight of hand. To explain the tricks to you would give you one solution, but it wouldn't give you all of the solutions.
In many cases, if not in most cases, I simply went on the show and did his same routine. But then I would get the MC sometimes saying, oh, yes, well, it's all very well for magicians to do this, but Mr. Geller doesn't use magic tricks.
But what about people who do come up with the cards?
Do you hear about the times they don't come up with them? Do you know that Uri Geller did 100 tests with sealed envelopes?
Why do you say that?
And what is the difference between what I did and what Uri Geller did?
Is because, well, I guess I really don't have a real answer.
Because magicians can duplicate some of these things with trickery does not mean that genuine psychics do it with trickery. Anyone can imitate the Mona Lisa, but that does not make them Leonardo da Vinci. You people remember that. Now, magicians say, no, nonsense, I duped the scientists. They say I fooled them. They always find loopholes. I challenge them and tell them, look, why don't you go and do it in a laboratory the way I was tested?